so I muted.
That's cool.
My bad. You explain that too. We'll just start over.
We're gonna start over. And it's good because I wasn't actually looking at the camera. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of B2TEA. And even though you can't probably tell, Melanie and I are actually in the same room right now. I am in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Movius World headquarters. It's a lovely space, and I'm very happy to be here. So without further ado, let's jump into our questions for the day. And the first question that I have for us is a little bit of a theoretical question, which is, can you run a marketing program, a marketing team, be a force in marketing without ever leaving your browser? So can you do everything you need to do to run a marketing team in this day and age without using any other applications on your computer except for your browser? So I think that you have to start listing essential functions of what you need to do. So for instance, email, right? You need to communicate with your team, you need to communicate externally. Yeah, that you can do that in your browser. Some people use, well, I send all of my emails from my browser, so that's fine. You can use Microsoft Teams in your browser. If you're a multi-line customer, you can use multi-line from your web browser. We have that capability. So I think that there's like a lot of that communication you can do via your browser, and I think that's a really cool thing that technology has made possible. Especially because like that means that you can kind of do your job. Let's say your computer goes down, right? You can just kind of pick up another computer, that day and open up your browser, and guess what? All of your files are there, all of your things are there. Where this gets a little bit tricky is if you're designing things, right? Like, hey, you can't really use Adobe Photoshop in your browser. You can't really use Adobe Illustrator in your browser, but there are tools out there like a Canva or something that is in your browser and has like a really powerful design function. So yeah, you don't have that like super high ceiling necessarily, but you have the ability to make designs and make files. So I think that it's like almost a surprising amount of things that you could do from your browser, and that's a really cool technological advancement.
I feel like most of what I do is online, or most of what I have is like an online version. I feel like the only exception is like hardcore data analytics, which normally has to get hosted on a desktop. Like Power BI runs on a desktop and then you upload it to the web when it's published, but you can't really work on it unless you're on a Windows software. But you could use like Google Analytics, and that's hosted on the internet. So I don't know. What do you think, Mel?
Some of the advantages to all these browser-based tools that we have today is, you can operate with more limited resources and less expense in software and hardware. But I'll admit that I have not personally made the transition as thoroughly as Sam has. I use the Outlook app and the Word app and the Excel, app and all the PDF app. I use all the apps in my computer, so I definitely wouldn't probably be keen to switch over to browser-based tools. But I'm noticing, all the time a shift to doing that, and it is an advantage if you have your remote or mobile teams to be able to have these tools that you can access in the browser.
Ever since I started this internship, I mainly am on like working directly from the browser. Like we have like all the Microsoft cloud applications already downloaded onto our devices, but I feel like me personally, when I'm sharing or collaborating with my team, it just makes the most sense to me just to do it directly off of a browser. I feel like you can do most things within a browser nowadays. But like what Sam said earlier, there are creative things like we can't really use Photoshop on a browser, but there are resources like Canva that kind of work similarly as Photoshop.
Yeah, so kind of a quick question here for the team. Are we like, for our email marketing campaigns, right? We're sending those from a browser-based tool, right?
Yes. We're using Zoom Info for our external lead generation, and we're using ActiveCampaign for established communications.
Right, and our web edits come via, like our website edits come via WordPress, and when our design team, shares updates to the website, they share it in Figma, and both of those things, again, browser access. Like really, I think hardcore video editing, really stuff that taxes your computer, needs to be done in Premiere or After Effects, and that you can't really do in a browser. But in Photoshop, some intensive Photoshop or Illustrator things, yeah, you can't do in a browser. But I'm thinking like that's the very, like very top end, which is important, obviously. But it's almost like encouraging, right? If you're getting started in marketing, or let's say you're kind of like running, you're starting like a little side hustle or a small business, and you just don't have that many resources and that many tools, you can, get 80% there with browser-based online tools that often you can get started for free, which is like a really, really cool thing. I think we've mentioned maybe like 10 different programs that you can get started for free or at a low cost. And then if you end up needing more capabilities down the road, yeah, you can pay for it. But it's a really, really almost like lowering that barrier to entry, being the ability to democratize these things, I think is only good for like the economic climate, right? Because it allows people to be more creative and make up, let their what they're very good at shine, because they can use these tools to sort of like bulwark the things that they might not be super experienced in.
You can't do a lot of intense video editing, but I gotta say that another browser-based tool that has to do with producing video that I really like is Loom. If you're creating just kind of a short how-to, there's a whole suite of applications that are similar in Loom that easily you just turn it on, it records, and then you have like a shareable link for your video. So that's just kind of a neat tool for video.
Absolutely. So I've got a follow-up question to this. We're going to push this a little bit further. We've all heard of work from home. What about work from phone? Is that possible?
You mean what our boss does every time he goes to his house in Italy? Yeah. It's really awesome. Or I'm not sure if it's every time, but I know that he's been working off his phone for a little while in Italy. And it's really, really amazing that one, he has the connectivity with that he can do everything from his phone. And also just the fact that there are enough applications that are powerful enough that he can like edit a Microsoft Teams document from his phone while he's doing his thing.
Yeah, it is like an insane thing. That is what prompted this, right? Like, if you have an issue where your internet gets knocked out by a storm and you're in Italy and you have T-Mobile, well, guess what? You can basically get your job done, which is an insanely cool thing. As always, shout out to partner T-Mobile. But I think what is really, really fascinating about this is that a browser on your phone and a browser on your computer are relatively comparable, except for, like some functionality, right? Sometimes it's nice to have a trackpad, a keyboard, or a mouse or something like that. But again, like I can access all the documents that I make on Canva via my phone, download them and send them to someone, or send them directly to someone, or share it, or look at a document that Erika has made or something like that. Which is, maybe that's not great for my work-life balance, right? Because I might be out, on a walk or something, and I'm supposed to be, off the clock or whatever, but I'm still looking at documents or something like that. Yeah, but at the same time, it allows me to be functional and available to a worldwide team, which is an invaluable skill, especially on a small team like this, right? When we might have one team member in Italy and one in Chicago, and I might be, somewhere up in the mountains in California, and we're all kind of connected and there, no matter what's happening. So that's a very cool thing. I will share one anecdote. I was skiing with one of my friends maybe a year ago, and he was on the clock on his phone and just completely doing his job at a reasonable level on the lifts. He would just pop onto the lift, grab his phone out, and get to work, and then put it in his pocket right before getting off the lift, ski down, get a run in, and then be back on his phone, and no one even knew. I would never be able to do that, but it's getting to the point where things like that are possible.
I think there's a trend now that within multiple industries that there's a resistance to purchasing any software that doesn't have that mobile connection, because even though you may be wanting to do most of your work from the desktop, being able to access, like you were talking about, for review, for communication, for just, sending things here and there, being able to do that from mobile devices is has definitely increased in the last, I would say 10 or so years. I think prior to this job, I didn't really access email or documents or team chat or anything like that outside the office. But now I can do that, whether it be because I've had to run a quick errand during the business day, or for any other reason. It's possible for my team to get in touch with me, and get a few things accomplished, even if for some reason my laptop is not available.
So the game that we're going to play is called Keep or Cut. Pretty simple. I'm just going to say two related marketing programs or marketing tools, and we're just going to decide whether or not we keep one or we cut one. So the first one that we have is, are we keeping or cutting Active Campaign or Zoom Info?
I would say Zoom Info is better than Active Campaign. Just because I like the infrastructure of Active Campaign, but Zoom Info is attached to a really, really good database of targeting, like prospects and leads. So just the ability to pinpoint who might be interested in your product is probably more important than having a really strong like sales flow build out. What do you think, Mel?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Active Campaign. I do think that Zoom Info's feature of identifying, possible leads is really neat, but there are definitely some other and that would need to be replaced, right? If I was going with Active Campaign, but I prefer Active Campaign's user interface when it comes to automating the emails, designing the emails, and even how those contacts are managed. I just prefer the interface of Active Campaign.
Yeah, I am going to say cut Active Campaign and keep Zoom Info, just because, again, the value of all of the data that comes with Zoom Info, I think, is really, really, really valuable. And like you can sort of design things, and I like the way in which you can design things in Active Campaign, but I think that the value of the data in Zoom Info is kind of like overwhelmingly positive. The next cut or keep that we're going to do is probably a little bit more related to Erika and I, but I'm curious for everyone's opinions as well. And that is the Adobe Suite. If you're unfamiliar with what's in the Adobe Suite, that would be Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, Lightroom, and Premiere, or Canva.
I would cut Canva. I love that it's an accessible, like editing, content creation, like website out there, but there are so many more capabilities with Adobe Suite. You have Photoshop, Illustrator to do like, creating fonts, and you can create videos with Premiere Pro. I think that Adobe Suite just provides more value in terms of like on the creative spectrum. But I still love Canva though. But
I'm actually going to do a little bit of differentiation here. If your primary job is creating visual things, you should keep the Adobe Suite and cut Canva, just because of everything Erika just said. Like, you can do so much more advanced things with Photoshop and Illustrator and Premiere and Lightroom and all of that. Like, you need that top-end capability if that's your role in a team. If you are a one-person team, if you are doing marketing for your startup and you have no resources, Canva, because not only are you able to do a lot of relatively advanced things, you can do them much cheaper, and they give you like a million different ideas on, templates and presets. And that can be really, really valuable if, again, most of your creative energy is going to like designing and building your product because that's what you're passionate about. Now you have to market it and you might not be super experienced. Well, that's a really, really great way to like save mental effort and creative energy. And I think Canva is really, really exceptional, especially for the slams team. Like if you have limited time and resources, then it's a really good way to kind of like bring your floor up. Like the concept of like ceiling and floor, the ceiling of the Adobe suite is just like in the stratosphere compared to Canva, but the floor of Canva, I think, makes it really valuable to a small and slams team.
I've been trying to adapt to the team's use of Canva. I gotta admit, it's a part of a lot of a suite of tools that build things in a certain way. And this actually does also include Canva and the most recent version of WordPress, where everything's blocks, right? This seems to be the new interface, blocks. And I don't know. Maybe I'm being a grandma here, but I'm not excited about it. It's not my preferred way of working. But so I'm gonna vote for Adobe Suite. However, I do sometimes wish that the free and open source version of the tools that are in Adobe Suite were more popular. Because I often do end up using Adobe Suite because that's what the teams use. But I definitely prefer programs like the GIMP for image editing or Inkscape for making SVGs. And tools in that LibreOffice, things like that. But you got to use what the team uses.
Yeah, shout out Melanie for bringing back GIMP and Inkscape. I think that's how I learned how to do graphic design and Photoshop basically when I was growing up, when I was in my formative years of learning what these things were, because they were free and they were there and they were powerful, which is really, really cool. So good shout out there for sure. Okay, our actually truly final key versus cut is organic social. You can't pay for it. You just have organic or email marketing.
That's a really good question. I
think I'm going to pick organic social. I'm not a big fan of emails. Even though I send the emails now.
True.
And I think more relevantly, not only do you send the emails, you see the open rates.
I mean, the open rates on a good email campaign can push 50%. Melanie has designed email campaigns that push 50%. The goal is to send the email to the person who needs the information. But I'm actually also going to go with Melanie. I think that what I want the most is for people to interact with my brand positively, right? And I want them to feel good about knowing the product that I'm selling. And if they go to my webpage and they see my organic social posts, they're a lot more likely, because they're taking the initiative to find stuff out, right? So they're getting what they want. And there's just too many people who get emails that are upset about them. So
I'm gonna say I prefer email marketing, only because I love to check my emails when I'm in awkward situations, or if I'm just bored, I just scroll through my emails. But also like me keeping up with my brands, like I'm busy during the day and during my nighttime email scroll, I see, oh my God, there's 50% off at the store. Like things that I don't have like the capacity to keep up with consistently, I can see it when they email me. And sometimes I like to see how they design their email campaigns. Some of them are like very intriguing and like captivating. But that's like what I enjoy the most when I get emails.
Yeah, I think that email is really effective if you build your email list well, and you build your email list full of people like Erika, really, who will like go through their emails, then you have an extremely effective program and it can be very, very valuable. If you're sort of indiscriminately emailing people, then it maybe gets annoying. But for instance, like if you're running a physical store, right, and you know people come in and they can sign up for your email list and you can email them about promotions or whatever, I think that it's extremely, extremely effective. The advantage that you get with organic social is that if you blow up in doing something, then you can get a lot more eyeballs on you. So I'm gonna say, like, if you're running a store that depends on people like physically coming into it, you know, like some boutique shop, I'd say email marketing has to be your best play here because you're more likely to reach return customers and people who are near you, because they're physically giving you their email. But if you're running kind of like an online storefront or something that people are, you know, can order from anywhere or anything like that, then I think you have to go with organic social because you can reach many more people and they're buying on the internet. So they're on the internet when they're seeing they're on their like social media, especially if you have an Instagram storefront, for instance, right? They're already on the app, right? So I think you have to do organic social if that's your sort of company. Sorry, that was a huge hedge.
It's a good hedge. I concur.
You know, I think having a lot of if you are like having sales or things like that, email marketing feels a little bit like an easier sell because you're letting people know you can save some money, or hey, there's this limited time thing. So maybe that's why I'm a little biased against email marketing right now, because we just have like one price. Our service is always one price. We're never trying to give anybody a deal or like tell somebody something kind of limited time. But I feel like if in the couple of times where we did want to share like some news, then it was a little bit more exciting to do the email campaign because we were telling somebody something that was a little time sensitive and a little bit. And in organic social, you know, you can also share those kind of things. But I did feel like our email campaign, when we had something kind of novel to share, was a little bit more enticing for me to participate in.
Makes sense. All right. This has been another episode of B2TEA. Thank you everyone for joining. As always, you can subscribe to us here on YouTube or check out us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Or if you want to learn more about Movius and what we do, check out Movius.ai. Thanks everyone. And then just like for the record, Jane Marie hates marketing. I'll just keep that in there.
We'll just clip that for the Instagram.
Yeah. Exactly.